When you're cooking straight from the garden, you have to be a little bit flexible because you don't always have every ingredient you want ready at the same time. Right now, it's early May, and today's challenge is making garden fresh salsa. The fresh ingredients that I have to work with in plenty are Egyptian onions, pepper, basil, and garlic chives, so we will employ all of those. Egyptian onions, also called walking onions, are a multiplier type that does better where I live than big bulbing onions. They have a classic onion flavor. Pepper basil really is a basil, but it tastes very much like green peppers. So since I don't have green pepper ready yet, that will add a delightful note. The bottles of water are helping to keep the basil warm because it's early yet, and actually with that plus a cover, I wintered some of this over last year in Zone 7B. Garlic chives will add a garlicky flavor, but a bit milder than standard garlic, and they perform beautifully in my area too. Since I don't have fresh tomatoes on the vine ready yet, we'll start with a can of crushed tomatoes, salt, ground chipotle, and cumin. Those are the store-bought ingredients. If fresh parsley and fresh cilantro are available, those are outstanding additions too. So is Mexican oregano. It's not really an oregano, it's a lipia, and it tastes much like oregano but with a more southwestern flair. Mine's not ready in the garden, but fortunately I dried some last year. Most people would process all this in a food processor, and you certainly may. My preference is to chop it fine with a knife and then use this Chef Sophie mortar and pestle. This is the big one. We started with about 2 total cups of chopped vegetables. Here it is after 2 minutes, then 4 minutes, then 6 minutes, gradually getting smaller and more pulverized. The pre-ground spices are mixed in with the crushed tomatoes. That includes the salt. And now I'll pour them all into the mortar and pestle and work it all into salsa. All of my tomatoes don't really fit without overflowing. That's okay. We can do this in stages and stir it all together later. Later in the summer, I can repeat the same thing using fresh tomatoes. When these juveniles start to produce, can change varieties of onions based on what's in season. Could even use some baby leeks, which are now growing alongside pepper plants and gradually being thinned out. And, of course, peppers. These are peppadews, which grew last year, and they were outstanding in salsa. They're not traditional, but many different kinds of peppers make good salsa. When it gets too hot for regular cilantro, as it does here very quickly, this Vietnamese cilantro is a nice substitute. It has quite a similar flavor, but it is completely unrelated, and it enjoys the heat. It's also known as Vietnamese coriander and is actually Persicaria odorata. You can find a nice article on it on Wikipedia. By the time that the garlic chives are feeling the heat, I should be ready to harvest some of this elephant garlic and use it. The basil and warm weather herbs will begin to mature and may be added according to your taste. Again, not a really traditional salsa ingredient, but it's your salsa. Put in what you want. So this is the season's first salsa from the garden batch, and it is just delicious.